Thanks for having me. I'm from Los Alamos, the second two authors as well, but there are many authors from a lot of national labs, and I will go through all of the national labs we have participating. But before I start my talk, I'm really happy what I heard here before about the tutorial and in the panel this morning said we have to do more for education in HPC and all the nice tools we have here at HPSF. So what is the motivation? So HPC is everywhere. We all agree domain scientists use HPC resources to run large-scale simulations. Machine learning needs HPC resources for training, and data science requires HPC resources to process big data sets, and there are many more examples, and many of these use tools we have here at HPSF, but HPC is not taught, not everywhere, and so if you go back to your studies as bachelors and masters, you might have learned a little bit about C++, but you never heard about Spec, CMake, and all these tools here. And so what we need to do is we educate machine learning scientists, data scientists, and domain scientists in HPC, and we need to teach proficient HPC users new technologies like new hardware, new software, Spec, Cocos, all those things here. And our group is committed to shaping the future of HPC workforce together through collaboration. And this is the outline. I will quickly go through related efforts and show how we are different. Then this effort, multi-center collaborations, challenges, and lessons we learned from this working group. And I will finish with some conclusion and outlook. So there are a lot of efforts here. We have other active working group. We have the ASCM SIG HPC education chapter. We have the CRC AI facilitation materials working group. We have ADEC training, outreach, and workforce development working groups. And we have the USRCE Education and Training Working Group working on similar efforts here. And we have also a collection of materials here. We have the Access CI events and training, where you can find a lot of trainings. We have HPC Ed, a meta catalog for events and materials. And in the Access Scale Computing Project, ECP, we had the Sustainable Research Pathways for HPC and HPC Workforce Development and Retention Action Group. But with the end of ECP, I think this group retired. You can find links to all of them in our paper here, so we couldn't put them on these slides. And is it still around? Okay. Okay, cool. Thanks. And so what I want to present today is the HPC Training Working Group, and it started at SC23. And staff from 3 national labs started here to compare their training efforts and how we can align these efforts. So not everyone has to develop their own spec training, and each national lab has their own spec training, because we have seen in the previous presentation, there's a really nice spec training. If you want, you can scan the QR code to go to our webpage, and if you're interested to join the working group, you can contact our chair, John Holman, here at Oak Ridge. I put his email address. And as a result of this discussion, a monthly meeting was established for HPC centers to share their experiences, practices, ideas, and opportunity for collaboration. And last year, we formalized ourselves as an HPC training working group. And so what I want to do today is twofold. I want to convince more national labs to join and compute centers. We only have a subset, and more people is better. And also one thing we want to advocate is maybe we should have an HPC training and tutorial working group here at HPSF as a new working group. And these are the participants. We have Los Alamos, represented by me, Oak Ridge National Lab. We have NERSC as the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. We have Lawrence Livermore National Lab. We have Argonne National Lab. We have Cornell Center for Advanced Computing. We have Texas Advanced Computing Center. We have Purdue University. And a few weeks ago, Idaho National Lab joined our efforts. And we meet every 4th Tuesday on the month at 1 p.m. Mountain, 3 p.m. ET, and so on. And we are open to everyone. So if you want to join us and contribute and learn for us, please send an email to John or go to the webpage. And we are happy to invite you to these monthly meetings. And we have also some available training here. So you see parallel programming is taught at all of the labs, and debugging is less obvious. Optimization, profiling is less, visualization is less. C++ is not taught at many institutions, which is quite interesting. Same for Fortran. Python is taught a lot by different institutions. Performance portability is taught by them, but not everything is Cocos. Many use other options here. GPU programming is not really taught, and the same for storage. And Job schedulers are taught, build systems, so some of us teach make and CMake. Module system is only taught at one center. Spec, you see, is only taught at LANL and Livermore. Other people do not have spec training, and they could really benefit from sharing training. We have a lot of training for center-specific resources, popular open source software, workflows is taught, containers is taught a lot, and quantum is starting to get more attention. And also machine learning, AI, and data science is getting more and more, and this is a collection. Each lab has trainings, and so one thing is, for example, if someone needs a new workflow training, we do not have to develop a training. We could invite people to give this training or share resources, so not everyone is developing a workflows COCOS training, so we could collaborate more here. And what we have done so far, we have done multi-center collaborations here. One big thing is cross-center advertising, so training collaborations to host the same event across multiple centers. We have done last year with Kidware a peer review training, and NERSC was organizing this peer review training, and we announced it at all national labs, and we had 150 people joining this training, which was quite a success. A few weeks ago we did the same. LANL was organizing a CMake training with Kidware, and we had over 100 people coming for this different kind of CMake trainings here. We have Slack channels, as mentioned in the previous talk. We have Google Spreadsheets, and these are used to share our event, which can start in the planning stage. And events hosted by one center and open to the other centers, so other centers can mirror the event page and advertise in the newsletter. One big example was last summer. We had a 2-day NVIDIA training, and we had 250 people signed up. 200 people showed up to this training, which was really amazing. And the most amazing part for all other national labs was that LANL was organizing everything. They just had to send a newsletter and could send their people. And this is what we want to do more crowdsourcing, that one lab has a lot of work and other labs can really benefit. And so it was really nice. Peer review was done by NERSC. And we do the intro to HPC bootcamp, and the introduction to high performance computing bootcamp is 1-week immerse program designed to introduce STEM students to fundamental HPC concepts and the application to solve complex scientific and energy related challenges. And for all of the events, we have a public web page. I put you in QR code so you can scan and look at the HPC bootcamp if you want. What we also have done, we have done Julia and Rust training experiences. So these new languages emerged, and what we have done at LANL, we invited NERSC and Oak Ridge because they were early adopters of Julia and have done a lot of Julia training. We haven't done this at LANL. And LANL also provided a lot of Rust training here, and we invited them to LANL, and then we had this internal training. Last summer we had the performance portability training series here, and there we did training on our own. So we invited companies to do performance portability for their various DOE supercomputers, and we collaborated with AMD, NVIDIA, and Intel to do GPU programming. You can scan the QR code if you're interested. We have an open hackathon, so hackathons pair selected HPC teams with specific technical expertise to archive target computational goals during a multi-day event, which was quite successful. And of course, we not only have nice weather, we all have a lot of challenges here. And these are the challenges we wanted to highlight in this paper, which we published last year at Supercomputing here. And one thing is materials and content here. So performance portability, because different labs have different kind of GPUs and architectures, hands-on comments, content difficulty. Then we have event planning, so training accounts is quite a big thing, event outsourcing, event format and resources. We have community resources, computing resources, funding of training can be tricky, and training accounts. And now I will go a little bit more in details here. So what is really nice, some HPC centers have dedicated test beds for user training and some do not. For centers without such a system, it can be challenging to coordinate user training alongside production user work. So we collaborated with HPC centers. They have access to targeted hardware to expand training offerings, community resources. So HPC centers typically maintain center-specific training material archives, an announcement mailing list. For centers, it can be challenging to advertise relevant events from other centers because your newsletter get really long and people do not read things anymore. So we want to use community resources for sharing materials, events at the HPC AD webpage because they have a nice calendar and we have a nicer user experience experience if you just link people there, and they can see what kind of open trainings are available. Funding training is really tricky because developing a training can cost a lot of manpower, but if you develop the training and you just have to do the training and update the slide, you need less funding. And also, some trainings we have with companies are not for free, and so it requires at least paying these companies or provide travel funding for external speakers. And so we shared the costs across HPC centers and use virtual training to save travel costs. For example, the CMake training was paid by a lot of national labs, so it was cheaper for all of us. Training accounts, so sometimes if you want to get training on an outside institution, then it can be really hard to get training accounts, and what we have done is move to cloud to have a dedicated training system with external accounts. We did this last time with NVIDIA. NVIDIA provided cloud access to all participants, and so it was quite nice because with 200 people, for some national lab it can be challenging to reserve 200 nodes for an 8-hour training, and so we have done this moving to cloud operations. Event planning, here's the event format. So you know, in the pandemic, we only had this online events, and so hybrid events become more popular, and most attendees prefer to attend online and not show up in the classroom anymore. So we started to alternate pure in-person and online training, especially for external instructors, because if people have a long travel to come to your lab and all we run is online, and there are only 2 people in the classroom, it's not a nice thing. And so NVIDIA started to do this. I mentioned we have the NVIDIA training last summer, this 2-day trainings. And what they are doing, they do one early this year in a virtual manner, and then we only have an in-person training for the summer, so more people show up. Event outsourcing, it can be difficult to find in-house expertise for all training needs, and so outsource training to third parties such as vendors where there are expertise gaps, or invite people from spec to give spec trainings for us so we don't have to do this. Event registration, so we have multiple registration sites, some are only internal, and it makes cross-center training events really complicated. And use a centralized system linked to institution accounts like we have EduRoom for academia would be quite nice to access clusters and training resources. So pitching training material to a variety of participants' technical competency level is really challenging. So we accommodate different skill levels with multi-part training, pedagogical components, and advocates that it will be learned what we have heard in the previous talk. And what we started is to make our trainings more modular. So you have a basic training, advanced training, and so you can cherry pick according to your audience. Hands-on contents can be difficult to provide for cross-center training events because all have different kind of GPUs and so on. And performance portability, current and emerging HPC systems are becoming increasingly diverse, and provide more training on performance portable solutions is really a big challenge we have here. And so I want to go to the conclusion and outlook. So critical role for collaboration between national labs and computing centers in shaping the future of HPC workforce. I showed you the initial list, and I really would hope that people here in the audience reach out to us, join our efforts, contact me or John, talk to me after the event here. Would be really nice if we could doing this. And then collective effort in context of rapid advancements in artificial intelligence. And so HPC serves as a foundational enabler, and so maybe we have to teach more HPC to these users, or maybe we also have to consider start teaching AI methods here. And another big thing starting here is quantum computing. So last week I had a lot of conversations with IBM and different quantum providers, because we also have to provide training how to program quantum computers, how to submit jobs there, because it's completely different what we have in HPC. So this could be one new opportunity. We from the HPC training education could do a lot of training for quantum computing, artificial intelligence. And AI technologies continue to evolve. The demand for skilled HPC workforce will grow accordingly, so making coordinated essential for addressing future scientific and technological challenges is really important, because many people use HPC tools like I mentioned before. And what we want to do, we want to sustain and strategically expand the current collaboration and organize Birth of Feather at SC 26 to get national labs and compute centers not yet participated involved. And I think it was a really nice opportunity to present this efforts here. And we also want to further enhance the effectiveness of our efforts. We will explore mechanisms for improved organization and sharing training materials. And of course, we have to have an AI-generated image. So let's propel HPC education to infinity and beyond. And we would love to hear your thoughts in the discussion section. So I keep the talk a little bit shorter, so we have a lot of discussion opportunities. And again, if you're interested to join the working group, please send an email to John, and he will invite you to our meetings. And I'm happy to discuss, and I'm done with my talk.
So you showed the chart of the different trainings in the same category. Do you have a sense of to what extent that's different sites scheduling the same training materials for their site and reusing effectively, and to what extent this is kind of duplicate effort across the sites?
I would say there's a lot of duplication there, but some of the training materials are really specific to centers because they use spec differently and so on. And we start to investigate more what we can do. But what we are really working on is having a catalog where everyone can give descriptions of their training, how long trainings are, when the training was last done. And so we have maybe someday a GitHub repo with a lot of LaTeX slides for all of the training and collaborate in one spec slide set. And not everyone is developing their own Git specs, CMake, you name it, training.
Thanks.
So you spoke multiple times about developing training material, and amongst the technology you were talking about, some of them have existing tutorial material. How do you decide when you develop new things, and when do you engage with the community? And because that's probably what gives you the most sustainable solution, right? If Spark follow what you were trying to achieve.
Yes. I agree we have to do better there, but we really started this effort a while ago to really identify how much duplicated training we have and how we can do better outreach to all of the HPSF projects here. And this was one aim to give this talk, to get more in touch with people here, because I think most of the projects here in HPSF have done training and have training materials and maybe could help us, or we could sit together and find one solution and have a repo for each of the training materials. We can cherry pick and design our own training depending on the need, if we have a lot of advanced users or beginners and so on.
Yeah, so I think my question follows a lot of what Damien was saying, because I think it's like a social challenge. Like, you know, among programmers, it's much more practice to like share and contribute code and make changes, but doing that with training materials is generally like a much harder problem, right? To like provide a meaningful contribution or change an exercise, so you kind of need some sort of central responsibility, like a maintainer who's spending a significant amount of time trying to maintain that. And so I guess like in that matrix, like I'm just trying to wonder, well, I'm trying to see like how much the HPSF can kind of contribute towards that, or, you know, like how would you see that kind of being, you know, or how would you see your effort doing all of this work being alleviated by efforts from the HPSF or from a working group here? Or
So I think the working group I presented here has really a focus on training and organize these trainings, but I think, as Damien mentioned, we could really leverage a lot of existing training material if they are public, and I think HPSF could be the connecting puzzle piece here to get the people focusing on the training, organize this training together. So, for example, if I would know that these guys have done a lot of spec trainings, Git trainings, or Cocos trainings, and so on, maybe we could get people together, and so we could help them to get new user bases and say, you don't have to organize a training, I will provide all the cloud resources, work on those things, and hey, could you give a training? And then I would just invite you to LANL, would pay for the travel costs, and then I would share this virtual option with all other national labs, or one national lab will invite those people. And so we would have less burden, because not all of us have a lot of FTEs to work on this, and so if I do not have to do a spec training and I could just invite someone virtually doing this, and then we would have people, really spec developers, have much more knowledge than someone of us. This is what we could envision what HPSF could contribute to.
Hi, over here. I'm interested in how you see sort of written documentation, other sort of, let's call it asynchronous training, sort of how you see that complementing or sort of comparing and contrasting with formal training, like scheduled training sessions and this sort of thing. And in particular for organizations that have teams that are at potentially very different levels in their technical evolution, whether it's HPC or other technologies, may not have exactly the same needs or the same level of familiarity. Is there one or another approach that you think is the best for getting teams started and promoting collaboration?
So I think what we doing most is we have both. We have trainings where we do a short introduction. I developed a 1.5-hour introduction to Git, Spec, and CMake to give people who never used these tools but heard about these tools some easy entrance. And then we have a lot of asynchronous material documentation. But what I learned is we have a lot of people coming from physics departments and these things, and they're not really computer sciencey, and then it's really helpful for them to just follow me, and then I tell them I clone spec, I do this and that, and they follow, and I think this is helpful, but we have to do both, and yeah, it's a big discussion. And one point I mentioned is to make a training available for beginners, advanced people, and find a good mix, and have different kind of trainings over a set of weeks and so on, which is not easy.
I have a question about the scalability. So I like the idea of getting broader reach for trainings. And we've done this, I mean, we do a tutorial every summer that we started maybe 3 or 4 summers ago, where we open it up basically to everyone to join for free. And we've gotten like 100+ people at that, and it's been really good. We also hit up conferences and things like that, but at some point, like for just the SPAC team, right? Like it becomes very, very burdensome to do the same training over and over and over again. And so is there a train the trainer aspect of what you're proposing, or is it just that the teams that know the tool would basically get more exposure to more HPC centers to spread the word about their tool?
It's a really good question, I think. It would be really nice to have a less burden, because I'm the project lead at LANL for all of this training, and I have 20% on my time to organize and do all the trainings, and you know how much training I can do and all these things. So I think it would be really nice to get the spec caucus people to do more training, but I see it's really horrible because I do the introduction in spec 1.5 hour every quarter, and it gets so boring after doing this the 10th time.
I guess we are. I didn't mention this in the opening presentation, but we are thinking of expanding the training that Livermore does every summer to be open to other HPSF projects to basically join in and have a slot in that, like, I guess it's 3 months, 2 or 3 month long training block. And I feel like that would be that's at least scalable for like a once a year kind of cadence. And can get a lot of people into the courses. But I mean, I think it's going to depend on what side of the training saturation the team is on, whether they want to join. Like I think a lot of teams would benefit from joining what you're proposing. But if we're doing training all over the place already, it's like one more thing to do, and how big is the audience? So yeah, these are all good ideas.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's all the time we have. So one more round of applause.